framework. And then we have these things up here. We call them extensions. Basically, they provide the functionality, the interaction, and the general usability of the site. Now, how is this different than other systems? Very simple. The application manages the website. So it handles all your user authentication, it handles your sessions, it handles all of this stuff that normally a CMS just does intrinsically. But then you have the extensions, which allow you to do pretty much anything, whether it's within the scope of what a CMS would do or if it's not. I've seen Joomla installs that control home media centers, where through a Joomla website, they're able to change the song that's playing on their home stereo. It's really incredibly powerful. And then we have the template layer on top, which allows aggressive theming, basically incredibly flexible theming. And then this little box over here on the side, the plugins, are events. They're fired by event handlers with a centralized dispatcher, the observer patterns, if any of you are familiar. And it lets you change the way things interact in the core. So without I've yet to see a problem that you can't solve with a plugin that you had to modify the core of Joomla, the framework. So like we said, based upon MVC, which is Modern View Controller, we add a custom spin on it that we call layouts. And I'll explain, I believe, the next slide what a layout is. The big thing to understand here, to understand what MVC is, an MVC, the URL tells Joomla what controller, what MVC unit to use. So it's a one-to-one relationship between a URL and the controller. Now, we also differ slightly on our interpretation of MVC. The way we do it is the controller can update the model. So if you're going to have a save action, the controller takes the data in, pushes the data into the model, and tells the model to save it. Or the controller tells the view, I want this view to be rendered. The view then will tell to fetch the data from the model and pull the data back into the view. This is slightly, I don't want to say better. It's a different way of doing things than Zen does it, simply because the logic is in the view, not in the controller for presentation, which has some very nice benefits in that you can change the view. You can add a new view without having to worry about changing the controller. So the view handles all your layout logic, including the requesting of data, and the controller just handles the plumbing and the actual actions. And then comes this thing that we call a layout. So what is a layout? It gives the designers power. Layouts can be overridden in the template. By putting one file in the folder, you can change the layout. Well, what is this thing that we call a layout? It's HTML, that's it. The view itself is an object which provides all of your display logic. The layout itself is an HTML file which takes that logic and converts it into HTML. Or, depending on what the case may be, you can create XML, PDFs, you name it. That's what the layout does. So without touching the logic, you can implement, and your site designers can change the way things look without having to copy and paste anything. Really incredibly powerful, I think. And so do a lot of template designers like this, from what we've seen. So the big picture of this, the big picture, how the application works is a user sends a request into the application. The application then says, okay, I need to dispatch a controller, which then returns the HTML for that portion, that page, which then gets pushed down into the template and then rendered back to the user. So we keep talking about extensibility here. What is extensibility? Well, we've come up with 3 types of extensibility that help you build your site. You have components, which are your MVC structures, your model, your view, your controllers, that provide actual functionality, that provide user interaction, and they're driven by the URL. So every URL action is handled by a component. Then you have plugins, which are those events that we talked about that allow you to modify modify your behavior. Those are driven by the application, meaning a plugin is specific to the application it's running on. So a component is specific to the URL, a plugin is specific to the application. Then we have these other things called modules. There's a little bit of confusion within the community as to what a module is. So here I say it's not the focus of the page, it's auxiliary information like menu structures, it's template driven. The template requests the module. The easiest way to explain this is to show you a picture. This is the United Nations Regional Information Center's website. It's powered by Joomla 1.5. So this actually is a very good example of the difference between components and modules. So the big thing in green is a component. Basically, it's the focus of the page. It's the article, it's the image in a gallery, it's a section or a category, it's anything that's the focus of the page. So then you have these modules which provide all of that ancillary data. You have your menus, you have your advertisements, your search box. It lets you separate the focus from the auxiliary data. So these provide the power to integrate things together. With these extensions, you have unlimited flexibility and the power to implement functionality. Now, I did not say customize for a very, very good reason. The way extensions are built, you don't go in and edit Joomla's core. You just build a new thing and it automatically integrates. It's about integration over customization. So spend your time worried about the features you need to worry about and not everything else. Let Joomla handle everything else. And the other really nice thing about the packaging system to package an extension is that installation and upgrade mechanisms are all handled by Joomla. So you build an installer manifest file and an installer package, and you just upload it as a single file and you're done. It installs, it updates, it deletes, it manages all of that code for you. So yeah, that's pretty much simple. A sample XML file that may be a little small to see. Really, the only thing here that's important is to notice that the extension's name, and then we have all these files listed down here. So with one package, one zip, you can do pretty much anything. You can have these for templates. You can package templates. You can package translations, templates, translations, components, plugins, pretty much anything. So that provides us a lot of power. If you've ever been to Joomla.org, there's a site called extensions.joomla.org which lists these. There's about 4,000 extensions right now, somewhere in that neighborhood. What I personally normally do whenever I'm looking to implement something, I don't build the extension from scratch. I'll go to extensions.joomla.org, find a solution that mostly fits my needs, the 80% solution as we call it, and modify that to suit my needs. Saves a lot of development time. So, and then we can also share back what we change and what we modify and any improvements that we did, so that the community can benefit. Okay, there we go. And I think that's back to you.
So as Anthony was talking about, obviously there's a lot of power here in the development side of things. And what we need to do is to find ways to get that power out to folks so they can use it, and then make sure that we find a way to continue to grow the community around that. Obviously with open source software, the goal is to really extend the software as much as possible and not just keep it in the hands of the few developers that happen to know the code and how they're going to do that. As my role on Open Source Matters, my job is to make sure to help build these communities. And I know a community that we're definitely trying to grow more of is here in Brazil, both on the documentation side as well as in the coding and development side. So I wanted to take a few slides just to talk a little bit more about how people can get more involved in the community and learn about what you can garner, what you can receive from the community to help you in your own development. So as I said, the development is powerful. Using development with a community makes